always remember throughout my life being curious about sexuality, but never being, my mum didn't have an explicit conversation with me about sexuality. I had to ask her to talk to me about it. So then, yeah, I really like sought out lessons from pornography. Yeah, I really explored my sexuality, more than many. And I would write stories about it, which ended up turning into a Facebook group that had lots and lots of people starting to join it. People would like see me at a party and be like, "Oh, I've read about your like sex stories. They're so interesting." Just
I
strangers. And
love that. What a like a conversation starter.
yeah, totally. So I like always had this like audacious kind of curious thing going on, but simultaneously I was a primary school teacher.
Mhm.
It was a very underground part of my life. That was like over there, and then the primary school teacher was here. And I'd say in the 2 years of being a full-time teacher, my life was really crumbling around me. I was dating an emotionally abusive person. We were like an intense, anxious, avoidant pattern playing out, which mimicked my childhood abandonment wounds of a father that, was not present from day dot in my life. Then during that same year of teaching, him and three sisters arrived into my life who I'd never met. I'd never been to a psychology appointment. I'd never heard of any form of embodiment or just any kind of, you know, care beyond a pat on the back of someone saying, "Are you okay?" And yeah, I was like grasping onto burnout and overwhelm in my teaching job, partying to try and avoid like all that was building externally in my life, and then having come downs from partying, continuing to sleep with people that disrespected my body. And yeah, I was just like a ticking time bomb. And I packed up my whole life in Melbourne, quit my job teaching, got a one-way ticket to Africa, where I would in the South African desert, not entirely sober, out in the desert, have an enormous spiritual awakening where I, yeah, went through my whole timeline, through my whole body, saw like every wound, physical and energetic that I was holding. And that was like, I came out of that experience with a lot of integrating to do and fear and trauma, but also with this just like beacon of the words self-love. Like, and I didn't know what that meant. I'd heard it like being spoken around a bit, but it was just like this compass, this North Star that I was like, I have to find that and do that. I have to do self-love. What is it? Um, and that would literally guide me to finding my way to Ängsbacka, a self-development community in Sweden, very far from Africa, but it just
Like straight up.
hitchhiking and yeah, North Star. And that was, yeah, I would say it was literally the first place that I ever experienced what it means to be safe, like to be truly safe, to let it all go, let all of the, yeah, all that had never been addressed in my life. I just unraveled. And yeah, I'll always remember laying in the forest floor in Sweden, just like sobbing my eyes out after connecting with my inner child for the first time, and just like a mess, a dissolved little goo caterpillar. And
Mm.
this beautiful man walking by me, and he lived in the community, and he bowed to me and he said, "Bless the process." And that's what it's like. That's what it was like for me living in that community. I just got to be the mess and the little child and the angry person, all the different versions of myself I'd never gotten to be, got to play out. And it was about halfway through my time there that I wanted to start teaching. I was a teacher still, I was teaching in the local primary school, and I wanted to start teaching people. Everyone was available to give workshops, and I wanted to run women's circle, and I wanted to run like a workshop about sexuality, talk about some of the things I'd been journaling or blogging about for so long. And people just responded so well to my workshops. Like they loved them and they were like, "Whoa, you're so good at this." And I felt like I love teaching and I love children, but the feeling of aliveness and like purpose and like, whoa, this is not just like a career. This is like my thing. Um, yeah, and that
That
became
sounds
that's how it all
wow.
started to unravel. Yeah.
Amazing. Wow. That is so beautiful. I can just imagine you in the Swedish forest under the pines or all the green leaves
Mm.
and just playing like what a great place to play to release the inner child. Were you there during summer or
From I arrived in the heart of winter and was there until midsummer or after midsummer. So yeah, I got to literally go into the dark and come out into the light.
ooh, isn't that like ecstatic? Isn't that the most ecstatic thing?
Yeah, I know. It's so funny being on like the more that you lean into your witch and your magic and you get to look at all the things in your life that you're like, you can't make that shit up. Like that's
Can't make it up. I am curious if we can just rewind a little bit. When you had your spiritual awakening in the desert of Africa, did anything change? Because you said that you were quite sexually liberated before that. Did anything change in terms of your ability to channel the sexual energy, or did your relationship with your body change in any way because of that event? Apart from what you shared around the healing, but just like directly in terms of like nervous system and somatic access.
Yeah, well, while I was liberal with my sexuality, it was coming in the younger years. And I don't have any shame around this. I think it was beautiful that, my maiden self was just trying things out and exploring, but essentially completely uninitiated, completely unguided. I was making some pretty bad choices with the people that I slept with, the way that they treated me, and I accepted that type of treatment. And so actually what happened afterwards is that I reached a point of not being able to have sex. I had a breakdown with a lover where I was just going through the more pornographic style sex that I was used to having and that I thought was what you're meant to do.
Yeah.
And my body actually just said no, like I collapsed. We were having sex in the shower and I collapsed in the shower and just it's like my pussy was literally screaming through my mouth. I was just sobbing and screaming and he was like horrified. We we broke up from there immediately, and
Yeah.
that actually began 2 years of celibacy. I
Mm.
like, my whole nervous system was just like, "We are starting again," and for the first time, that was me listening to her saying, like,
Mhm.
"I'm at capacity, and the way you've been treating me is not how we are gonna go going forward," and it was such a grief for me because I was so scared that I wasn't gonna have access to this part of myself that I loved so much, like sexuality and pleasure. But what happened when I foregoed or forewent let go of sex and, like, detoxed the way that I was doing it in a way and came into contact with being able to actually pleasure myself, actually honor myself, actually be able to hear my pussy. I love to teach, our pussy has a consciousness. She has her own will and wants and needs.
Mm.
Um, building that, like, listening and that relationship, so
Yeah.
that 2 years later when I re-entered for the first time and I it wasn't sexual, like, the first intimate experience I had was literally we were around a fire and he put his foot, like, rested it on my foot.
Naughty.
I know. Cheeky. My whole body was like, the feeling that I had cultivated, like, the capacity to feel the subtleties. Like, I was like it was like a rebirth of my sexuality. I've been so, so different to who I am as a sexual woman now, um, and I like it. It's a good difference.
Yes. So it's like you had access to the energy, but the level of consciousness that you were at couldn't channel it or express it or enjoy it in the
Yeah.
way that was actually possible for you. So then when you had your spiritual awakening, was it after that you had your celibacy? Yeah.
Yeah, to harness it, exactly, to harness, like,
Mhm.
Eros as, like, yeah, this power that, it's almost like magic, like when you're using
Mhm.
magic or, in the school of witchery and wizardry, you have to learn, or in the Tao, like you have to learn to use the sword because it can be used for harm,
Yeah.
actually, as well, if it's not like carefully like refined and tuned. And yeah, I have a lot of life force, and
Mm.
it kind of like has in my past exploded out of me because I had no training, and I've had to like, condense and refine it so that it is this powerful force
Mm.
that I can hold rather than it holding me.
Exactly. So it's a form of mastery. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I just had a reflection actually from a brother who came to a training that I run with some colleagues called The Art of Worship, and it's for men learning who want to learn to worship women.
Oh,
And
okay.
very nice. And
And their numbers will be down in the description below.
when people say there are no good men, I'm like, actually,
Oh, there are good men. Yeah.
many, many good men. Many, many. And he said to me, Chloe, like, not in a disrespectful way, but I've never like felt, a sexual attraction towards you. You've always been a friend. I haven't seen you that way. But there was this moment in the workshop where we were walking around the room and we had to, embody being busy and being in our mind. And then we had to
Mm.
walk around the room and embody like our sexuality and our essence. And he's like, there's this moment when you were walking in your sexual essence. He's like, it's like you turn on a light switch. And for a sudden, I just saw all, who you are as a sexual being. And I melted. Like my whole body was
Mm.
so aroused and turned on. And then we finished the exercise and it was like it was gone. It's like, I don't know how you did that. And I was like, yeah, I guess that's my like, I can bring it out now if I wish, but otherwise it's mine.
Would you mind sharing a little bit about before, so when you were in your maiden era, what was some of the things or some of the experiences that you had um, as a result of not having that kind of mastery? Was there anything like any types of destructive behaviors or painful memories that you feel comfortable sharing? I'm just thinking for people who may be listening that
Mm.
haven't yet reached that level of mastery.
Really not understanding what my body wanted or
Mm.
needed in a moment. And as a result of that, really letting a man's pleasure dictate. I was mostly having sex with men at this point.
Mm.
Um, letting their wants and their needs dictate like what we did, like even as simple as like literally having penetrative sex and feeling like a distant kind of in the background, knowing that I've had enough and I'm actually starting to get a bit sore,
Yeah.
but having this other, people pleaser
Mm.
porn says a man must come, so just keep going. He'll come soon. And actually, maybe if you just make more noises and go even harder and faster, making it
Mhm.
painful for you, it will be over sooner.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, which like brings a sadness in my heart, but this just like overriding in order to like reach some kind of perceived expectation that I should be giving them a
Yeah.
certain amount of pleasure at the literal expense of my body, which actually is not pleasurable for them either, by the way.
No, it's not. It's just a game of pretense, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so many, and I know I've done it. I've played along to that so many times, and then feeling like something is off, but not wanting to step into vulnerability because then you're breaking the act, and it's like um, I think, I mean, it comes down to so many things, but one of the things would be, I guess, fear of intimacy, of being truly intimate with someone.
Mm.
And that then reflects back to perhaps a lack of intimacy with oneself, like you were saying, intimacy with the body.
Yeah, absolutely. And no denying that I also, there are people who are not kind. There was this like little fire in me that was like, things were starting to shift, of course, like in women, like girl power and these kind of phrases. And I remember saying, I think I need a break, or it's the middle of the night, like I want to sleep. And, him saying, well, why did you invite me over then? What's the point of me being here? Yeah.
Oh,
Plen
infuriating.
Yeah, I had plenty of experiences like that. One fun, like, counterbalance of that is a guy, coming over, and we were both coming in from the club at, like, 7 a.m., so you can imagine our state, and he
Mm,
wanted to put his clothes in the washing machine because he was really freaked out about how dirty they were. So I was like, "Okay, put your clothes in my washing machine," and the washing machine was right next to my bedroom,
yeah.
and I could hear it just like gung gung making really loud noise, and I was like, "What have you put into the washing machine? You know, it's really loud." And he's like, "Oh, my shoes were really dirty as well." And I was like, "What the fuck?" Anyway, he was one of the people that, yeah, was like trying to cross my boundaries, and I was like, "I
Mm,
just, I want to sleep for a few hours, and we can be intimate later." And he just like, I think he tried like 3 times, and then I was like, "Get out of my
mm,
house."
mm.
Anyway, he had to get up, get a plastic bag, and I gave him an old pair of my pants and made him leave my house with no shoes, his clothes in a wet bag, and
Oh, yes, good on
10
you.
minutes of my power, like, were
Mhm.
just trying to come out, like, "No."
Ah, it's making me feel so many things just talking about this. I was just going through a process the other day, um, where from when I started being sexually active at 14 up until probably my new partner now, I it's just been a lot of people pleasing, and staying in really abusive dynamics, not necessarily to please them, but also for me to stay connected, for me to feel like, oh, I belong here.
Mm,
And so I guess sexuality or sex, pleasure, my body has always almost been like a currency. It's like I give my body to you and I let you do what you want with it as long as you stay with me.
yes,
It's a trade.
absolutely. I think the most recognizable example of that is, like, oral sex.
Mm,
I went down on you, so now you go down on me,
yeah.
and
Mm.
that's not how it works. It's not a currency.
No, it shouldn't be.
No.
And the other day I had I think it was 3 hours of just purging, and in the end, all I could say for about, I think it was 20 minutes was just this no. It's like, "No, no, no." Like this no was, had been stuck in my body for
Mm,
such a long time. Because I am good at putting down boundaries. So I can be really direct and I'm not afraid of confronting people. I'm still working through it, but there was a no that had been buried for so long inside my body. And and I realized how many times in the past, like hundreds of times, not just sexually, but in other areas of life, that I had not let that come out fully. And how in the purging, I realized how much I betrayed myself. Every
mm,
time I did not say no, I betrayed myself and my body. And that was a hard pill to swallow.
mm. Yeah, it's something I see many people have to go through in my
Mm.
work, is to find that no and realize in finding it how often they had ignored it, and the guilt that can arise
Mm.
as just this, well, instead of crossing my boundaries now, I'll just guilt myself for having crossed my boundaries,
Mm.
shame myself. And it's such a deep practice to be able to actually just tap into the grief, the grief that we weren't taught, that our bodies are our own.
Mm.
Consent was not, you know, taught to us. That also wasn't our mother's fault because it wasn't taught to them.
Exactly.
And it's just it's a grief that to be unearthed requires like the capacity to really hold yourself, but also be held. Like, I really do believe that the first time tapping into these layers of grief, one needs to be held, whether it's by a person, a facilitator, a therapist, nature, a friend. Like, it's big, big work to step into. It's the initiation later that we needed.
Oh, I'm like tearing up listening to you and also feeling my, can I put words to it? The power of our womb and her voice as women when our choices in life are aligned with her. There's something about it that feels so powerful, not just sexually, but it's like I'm lost for words. I became really quiet inside, and it's almost like that is her also wanting to speak through me. Yeah, it's a reclamation of something that was always ours, but we forgot that it was.
Mm.
And how can we live a full life if we don't know our yes and our no? Like, that is such a simple thing that I think it's easy to just brush over, but it's absolutely fundamental that we know what that feels like. So, do you do any particular exercises or rituals around embodying the yes and a no?
Well, I just wanna say, like, my body, like, really came into that state with you, like, really felt the stillness and, like, the womb wisdom kind of, like, open up into this space, and it's so liminal, and it's so nonverbal and intuitive. Um, yeah, and I was actually just running one of my retreats here in Australia, and it's a practice that we do, is going into listening to our mind consciousness, our heart's consciousness, our womb's consciousness, and our pussy's consciousness or yoni consciousness, and really hearing and understanding how vastly different those consciousnesses are, what their desires are, what their needs are. And when they are not in communication and there's like a disparity, like that actually creating the internal angst that we can feel, and to be able to listen and to understand and to come into alignment, or to choose, you know what, I always listen to my mind based on who to date. What if I listen to my womb?
Mm.
Like, what different choice might arise, and literally majorly different choices can arise. I like my pussy's consciousness, for example, is mostly who dictates my clothing. She's
Mm.
she's way more like wild and colorful, and people are always like, "Oh, I could never wear those two colors together," and I'm like, "Oh, yes, you could. Just put them on." And
I love it.
yeah, so that's a practice that I really love, and that usually blows people's minds of like, "Eh, there's different thoughts going on internally." Yeah, there are. And mostly in our society, we're just geared towards listening to our mind.
Yeah.
Um, as both of you and I know in our work, there is so many other forms of wisdom living inside of us, untapped, waiting, you know.
So you have exciting news. You're going to come to Sweden and you're going to do a retreat. And I'm a little bit jealous because I also want to be there in summer. It sounds wonderful. Do you want to share a little bit about what you're going to be doing?
So nice to frolic in the Swedish forest with you sometime, or whatever needed to happen. Yeah, I for a while now being called back up again, to where essentially the safety and the opening really started to take place for me. My family's also Irish, so I have this connection with this side of the world, and I'm bringing my retreat, Pussy Palace Vacation, which is my infamous retreat and workshop I run and have ran for the last 5 years in Australia. I'm bringing it to Sweden, and I'm not bringing it alone. I'm actually teaming up with two really, really powerful facilitators in their own right Kim Ik, who is a embodiment photographer. Like, she was the first person to ever take a picture of my pussy covered in glitter and take pictures of me naked in the forest. Like, when I was finding that self, her photography is magnificent, and she's going to be capturing us in our essence. And then Laura, who is going, she is a fellow study of the Tao Tantric arts. We trained together in Nicaragua, and we're going to be guiding people through. I love to call it, like, if you imagine the ultimate grown up slumber party, but you chucked in some really deep self development work and a lot of inner child play. I haven't, yeah, I've yet to see anyone leave the Pussy Palace not like 10 times more like vibrant in their energy field, in their literal self, with deep woven sisterhoods, with a really much more like fertile ground of relationship with their body. Even if they've been deep in self-development work for a while, it's just bringing in some either practices you might have done or brand new like Tao tantric practices to sharpen this relationship with all of ourselves as feminine beings. Yeah, it's sacred, it's fun.
One thing that I really love about your energy that I think is really helpful is that playfulness that you bring, because I think some people might be like, "Ooh, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna be like masturbating? And like, what? Like, are we gonna be naked? Like, what's There can be so many fears, imagined or real, that comes up, but your level of playfulness and lightness that I perceive anyway, I think is really helpful in making people feel safe, and I think that's important. Like it I don't know. God to me is light. It's joy. It's yeah, it's playfulness, and I think that's beautiful. Sex and intimacy and working with the soul, and doing that in a playful way. I think it's super healing.
Mm, thank you for that reflection, and it's one that I'm honestly receiving more and more, that that is my medicine, that yeah, I'm a teacher, I worked with little babe bubby children before, like younger years. I was a professional fairy for 10 years.
Hold on. What do you mean you were a professional fairy? Like kids
Professional fairy, kids fairy parties.
Oh my god. How fun.
So I really know that play and that like that lightness, like cultivating that is disarming. And from that disarmed place, we get really fucking deep, to be honest. And people often are like, whoa, when they see me in my priestess, it's often like a surprise because
Mm,
I do, yeah, kind of wear the cloak of playfulness in the digital realms. It just to me is more accessible,
yeah.
and a lot of the, initiatory, like rites of passage work that we do, it's not really for social media anyway. It's something that has to be like called, it has to call you. It has to like call you in. And so like, yeah, will you get naked or not? Like it will always be a choice, by the way,
Mm,
whatever you do on in my spaces, like whether you choose to get naked, because yes, that's an option, whether you choose to engage in some of the practices that will involve self-touch or not, that will all come on the grounds of having cultivated deep safety. And
yeah.
nothing that I ever do comes fast. Like, you know, the pussy opens when she is slowly warmed, and we have to slowly warm up to these deeper practices because yeah, they can be a lot. And I've experienced what it's like to go too fast in myself, and in my younger years of facilitation, or when I was just like practicing something new, and I know that it doesn't work.
Mm.
Yeah, that is something I really pride as well. So thank you.
And what's one thing that you really look forward to about the retreat? Like, what's your favorite part?
Well, it's so funny, like the build up to a retreat, like of course I have to, you know, talk to people about it, do all that website, organize the caterer. There's so many logistics. And the moment when I'm just there and my team has arrived, and then the participants start to arrive, and I can put all of the technology away and just be in it.
Yeah.
It's like this is what it's all for moment for me. And then we just let the outside world disappears and we're just there on the land in each other's presence, fully immersed for those 5 days. And I just, yeah, it's like jumping on a spaceship and heading off to another like planet for pussy planet for a little while. I just love
I love it.
it.
So who is this for? Who do you envision coming?
This is for the woman or femme babe who needs to, as Mama Gina says, like turn on that internal light switch. Like, even
Mm.
for the first time that you haven't never stepped into spaces like this and you're ready to turn on this light of aliveness and feminine wisdom and excitement. Or for those who you've done it, but then you've gotten, into the monotony and the routine of life that, of course, takes hold of us all, and myself included, and you need to recalibrate and come back to that deeper wisdom. Yeah, those who are devoted enough to take a full 5 days out. To be honest, even a day before and a day after would be ideal so you can really receive and not just quickly come after work and quickly go back to work. Like, can you allow yourself to really receive the medicine that is available from this experience?
Beautiful. One thing that I know is that, because I'm from Sweden, but I live here in Melbourne, I can tell that, and I'm sorry if I'm offending Swedish people now. Actually, I'm not sorry. I don't really care. But Swedes are generally a little bit more polite and held back and shy, and not always, but there's a tendency to be a little bit more imprisoned in the bodies. And I'm going to I've got two examples of this. And it's both got to do with music. When I go to a gig or a festival here, people are loose. Like, there's a freedom here. People are so liberated. They don't really care about what they look like. They don't really care about, like, well, of course, people care about what they look like, but there's a diversity and a general acceptance of the masks we wear, no matter what they are. Whereas in Sweden, it's a little bit more proper and a little bit more held back. And the social masks can be very tight, even in the spiritual community. And I went to a concert. This is before I left Sweden in 2008. And it was with Jason Mraz. Do you know who Jason Mraz is?
No.
Okay, anyway, I love him. And he was pouring his heart out to the crowd. He's a very soulful person. You can tell that he's very connected through his lyrics. And he's giving his heart to the audience. And everyone's like this. But then he said, but I was doing the same thing. And then he said something that I'll never forget. And he said, because I could tell that he picked up on the tension. And he said, I just want to say something, a message to all of you. Never let your mind stopping your body from having a good time. And the moment he said that, people were like, oh, yeah, that's what we were doing.
Wow.
And then I went back last year and I had a similar experience at a concert. This is a Swedish hip hop artist, and Timbuktu, för er som är från Sverige. And it was at Gröna Lund. And I'm there with my daughters and we're watching this concert. And again, the same thing. He's just like pouring his heart. It's just, they give so much when they're on stage, right? And people are like this. Again, same thing, not really moving. And I'm like, this is so crazy because here in Melbourne, it's completely different. And then my daughters, and then there was one of the songs that are famous, and people started moving. And my daughter picked up on this, and she said, wow, they went from like uncooked spaghetti, and now the spaghetti is boiling. Because we're standing in the back, so we saw all these bodies of and it was so cute. And I was like, that is a massive, I think, indication and reflection of the collective Swedish consciousness. And the reason I'm sharing this is because I feel like bringing medicine from here, Melbourne and Australia, to Sweden is very much needed. And I also think that it's gonna be a very like a rare experience to have that new kind of pulse or flow from a completely different culture. Because yes, we're both westernized cultures, but it's very different.
Very, very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love those examples, and I've actually lived that. I've
Yeah.
lived in Sweden 3 times, and
So you know.
every time, actually, the influence that I have had before I was even a facilitator, just being myself, um,
Mm.
people literally saying, "Wow, like, I've started dressing differently because of the permission slip that you gave," or I've started like dancing differently. And many, many times I've had the feedback from Scandinavian people of, yeah, the level of permission that I bring. And I do think it's that we Australians, for some reason, because we're so fucking detached and wild and like far away from, I mean, Sweden are as well, very far away from many. But yeah, maybe I just trust that that's why I'm kind of being pulled back there again and again in my life, is because, yeah, I do have some codes for,
Mhm.
that space. And I want to say that I also deeply receive a lot from Sweden as well, and from yeah, like their connection to their seasons, and these, like, yeah, I do think it's like an interweaving wisdom that's available, but maybe in the realms of just allowing yourself to be in your body and have fun and have pleasure, and not just be so occupied, like that artist said, by the mind's like rules and governing, which I know is a thing as well over there.
Yeah.
Strong governance, then it's a bit of a breath, a bit of a
Mm.
big breath or a moan of relief. Yeah.
I love it. It's going to be awesome, Chloe. Yeah, whoever is coming is going to be very lucky to have you. And how do people get in touch with you if they want to join along?
Well, the best way to be in touch with me is actually to be on my mailing list, because as someone who's had her social medias deleted, I always say that the safest way to be in communication with me is my mailing list, which you can find on my website, www.chloeadriana.com. Or my Instagram, Queen Chloe Adriana. Yeah, I think those are the two best platforms. Oh, surely someone could WhatsApp me if they were really keen as well.